and welcome to episode 70 of the award-winning Combat Sports Podcast, The Boxing Show, with me, your host, Rob Tebbert. As always, let's remind everybody to please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I am joined by the usual twosome this week of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clark as we look ahead to this weekend's action. Everyone's okay. We did it everyone knows we did it yesterday. But how are we doing, guys?
Good.
Yeah, no change.
Did you do anything at the weekends?
I did a couple of things.
We'll just watch yesterday's show. We've got a lot to get through. Barry, we're going to start with you. This week's preview show. We do have a lot to try and get through. We're going to start with the quote-unquote real boxing before we address the circus.
That's not fair, mate.
Oh.
No, go on.
I was going to say we can start with the biggest name in combat sports, Gilberto Ramirez. No, let's start with Gilberto Ramirez and Chris Billam-Smith meet in a WBA and WBO unification fight in the cruiserweight division. It is Latino night in Riyadh.
Good bill, I think.
It's a very good bill.
It's a good bill.
And it is very, very much a Latino night, so I don't suppose you're going to be there. Have you been working on your Espanol?
Do you know what? I got to say, I'm right pissed off with the Zone. They're a lovely company to work with. I've been going, you need a British influence. You know, I mean, for the main fight, you need a British influence because, like, it's. You know, I think most of the Americans still think, British fighters are shit. So I think they're going to think they know they're boxing Sergio Mora, and of course they do. But I mean, no, I'm joking. Batter me when they see me. But I said, they all think Zurdo's going to walk through him, and I don't know what I'm talking to. A couple of people I mentioned at the Zone, and they've listened. And Darren Barker's going, which was brilliant. I love Darren. He do a great job, and I'm not complaining about that.
It's quite funny though.
When I say British influence, I meant me, you pricks.
No, I meant Welsh.
Welsh. And I do try and say there's a few lightweights on there, and I'm trying to call them small like that.
Did you used to box at lightweight? Yeah.
They don't know. It's all close enough, isn't it? I don't need you, mate. Yeah, so I don't want to be out there all week, but I wanted to go.
You should have said you need a former WBO champion talking about this.
That's
what you should have gone down that route. A Welsh one, ideally.
Yeah, that's it's the Welsh Boxing Organisation. That's what it's called. Yeah, but I'm funny about this, mate. I think it's a really good card, but the top of the bill, I'm still not sure if it's going to be a brilliant fight or shit. Do you know what I mean?
DAZN, that's what you need. You get to get Barry over there.
You should have had me, innit? You should have, if I was fish you. I
was going to say, if he was there, it'd be the best main event.
If I was, no, but I'm excited. But I think it will be a good fight in the end, actually. Because if anything, Bilam-Smith will not allow it to be not a good fight because if he's not in a bang-up, he don't want to fight, does he? But Ramirez has in and out with the feet and the fast enough hands, potentially to make Bilam-Smith look really, really pedestrian. And if he does that, then it's not a great fight to watch because you got one guy who's trying to chase another guy who just can't be caught. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out. So I think it's very important for Bilam-Smith just to jump on him as quick as he can. He's more thoughtful in his work, Bilam-Smith, but also he can be sometimes fall into the trap of just trying a little bit too hard. Like Riakpo was tied him up too easy, I thought, in his last contest. And I think somebody like Ramirez who does that and throws lots of punches, high work rate, Bilam-Smith's got to suffocate that space really quick, and he got the engine, he's got the physical attributes to do that. But if he lets Ramirez into a rhythm, it's going to be a really hard night for him.
Andy, you have
that quick.
That's okay, no problem. Yeah, right. Moving on to Mike Tyson. No, okay, Andy, you've watched and covered. I mean, as we all have, a lot of Chris Billam-Smith's career. But certainly in the recent times of him headlining in Bournemouth on the boxer shows on Sky Sports. If 5 years ago, let's say after Bilam-Smith Riakpo won, we would have said that we were about to go to Saudi. No, you're not going. That I was about to go to Saudi for a Chris Billam-Smith world title unification bout. I think people would have probably, with respect to Chris Billam-Smith, put you in a padded room somewhere.
Yeah, they probably would have done, but that's just testament to how he's built his career and how he's kept on improving and kept working and kept believing in himself. And it's great to see because these are the stories that are really important because you can hold them up to other fighters and they don't, you can't just say to someone just because he's managed to do it, it means that anyone can do it. That's not it at all, but it just means it can be done. Not just anyone can do it, very few people can do it, but it can be done if you turn over without any great fanfare and you're taking everything a step at a time. You don't get ahead of yourself and look what you might be able to do. So it's great. And with Chris as well, I wonder if there'll come a point at which it starts to get on his nerves that he seems to be constantly underestimated, or whether he'll just always embrace it because he knows that it can work for him. Because he was underestimated against Okoli. I think that was fair enough in a way, because Okoli had never come remotely close to losing, and he won. And a lot of people made Riakporhe a favourite when they met earlier in the year. I couldn't quite work out. Yeah,
he was quite sizable betting favourite at the bookies.
He was, and like you, I couldn't work out how, based on what would you make Richard Riakporhe a big favourite in that fight. I wasn't ridiculing people who picked him to win, but I couldn't understand. There didn't seem to be an enormous amount of logic behind that selection to me. And he won comfortably, and he stuck to the plan, and he was really disciplined. And I thought, just again, he's proved that he's a big occasion fighter. And I would not bet against him with any confidence at the weekend. I think this is a close fight.
Yeah.
I think it is a close fight, and anyone who thinks that it's not, why wouldn't you think it? Because look at what they've both done at cruiserweight, because that's the weight that they're boxing at. And if you look at what they've done at cruiserweight, Bilam-Smith should be the favourite, shouldn't he?
Barry, just on that, we're going to talk about the weight slightly later, but as Andy's brought it up, we'll talk about it now. Gilberto Ramirez has had one fight at the full limit of 200 pounds, of course, in winning the title against Arsene Goulamirian. He had a fight against Joe Smith Jr. It was 193 pound catch weight. Obviously, Joe Smith Jr. light heavyweight as well. How important do you think physical size, natural size, could be in this fight, and what does Chris Bilam-Smith have to do in order to make that natural size work for him?
Yeah, I think it's really important. The people say, "Oh, Ramirez walks around at so and so," but that's, you're walking around with your natural fighting weights are different things. So all the physical attributes, size-wise, are with Billam-Smith. You've got to make it tell. I think what Billam-Smith has shown is an innate toughness against Okoli. The reason why we thought that Okoli would beat him, or I did, was Billam-Smith's willingness to walk through a shot, to land a shot at times. I thought against Okoli would just mean Okoli knocks you out, doesn't he? So if you're going to walk into those shots, you're going to get knocked out. But he's shown he takes a good shot, he fires back under pressure, and I think just his adaptability, and even against Masterneck, who's a massively underrated boxer, even that fight, but he didn't look fantastic, but he knows how to battle through, and that's a real sign of a good champion. That is, but no, not every champion can look supersonic, and we're not judging him because of the way he got to the top. We're not judging him like, say, like a Boots Ennis, who we thought was a precocious talent who should be doing things more. We're saying Bilam-Smith, actually, he's had to learn every fight. He's still learning on a job, even though he's a world champion. He's still learning on a job. So he's having to learn to adapt what he's good at as a world champion. So you give him a bit more leeway in underpar performances, as you would call him, against Masterneck, but I don't think he was. Just came a guy who's technically very good, really tricky, and he just had to work him out a little bit, and it was harder than what people thought it was going to be. So I think against someone like Ramirez, you've got to take away his feet. Like, you've got to take away his work, you've got to slow him down to your pace, and that's, every punch got to be solid. That's all. You got to be able to block and counter. You got to try and suffocate that space. But also, if Ramirez, you just walk him down, in straight lines, he'll just fire and move away. So you've got to just be a little bit smarter than that. But you just can't give him enough room to get. He throws in combinations, Ramirez. But I think if you make him work all the time, it's just making him work when they don't want to work. I think that's the key. I think for him, he has good. Bilam-Smith's footwork's not fantastic. But he can suffocate you a little bit. I think he has to just be a bit of a bully in there. I think that's important. But he has to make sure he lands with that jab all the time, solid. Before he throws anything, you don't want to be throwing for too far out and then allowing Ramirez to take a little bounce back, and then because he'll dart in with combinations and he'll make you look silly. So I think you have to just make sure you double jab your way, and when you get close enough, then just bang him anywhere. Just slow him down. That's what you got to do. Slow him down. The body would be the obvious thing to do, but I wouldn't go massively over the top while working the body, because there's a big head to hit. People will say the body slows him down. Any punch slows you down. Body shots are great, but I mean, I'd rather get hit in the body than the chin. You know what I mean? Like, then that slows you down. You get hurt on the chin, most definitely. So I do think he has to just make Ramirez work. Every time Ramirez wants to take a little bit of a gap, you just jump on him straight away. It's a hard fight. It's a hard fight for Bilam-Smith, and I think you have to make Ramirez a bit of the favourite. I do. I think, but again, and like I agree with that. Anyone thinks it's going to be a walk in the park from Ramirez is laughing. Like Bilam-Smith's got a really big chance to win this, and he has all the size and strength, and also experience now as well, to manage a fight, to make it his sort of fight.
Andy, you mentioned earlier, and we all travel around, and we all have American counterparts who we bump into from time to time. And, the biggest fan of British boxing in general. You mentioned earlier about kind of whether or not Zurdo's team would be overlooking Chris Billam-Smith. Malik Scott, who is part of the training team of Zurdo Ramirez, I think subscribes to everybody else's American way of thinking that British fighters aren't necessarily the most competent, should we say. I'm just trying to find the article. Yeah. So Malik Scott said, I had Zurdo for his fight with Joe Smith and he did well. No disrespect to Chris Billam-Smith, but this fight is a mismatch. Zurdo is a big, strong southpaw who's faced tougher opponents than Billam-Smith. He's a powerful body puncher with great angles and incredible
cruiserweight,
boxing
has
mind.
That would be my question to Malik Scott.
So the win that he does have at cruiserweight is against Arsene Gulamirian, of course. So I think we did this podcast over the last few years while we were waiting for Arsene Gulamirian to box Alexei Egorov, which was one of the most cursed fights in all of boxing, alongside Julio Cesar Martinez and Williams Arroyo.
That's a big win against Gulamirian. But Gulamirian, look at the problems he's had outside the ring and how inactive he's been.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying Ramirez isn't a good fighter. Ramirez is definitely a good fighter. This is a really good fight. I just think the idea that it's a mismatch is, I don't understand where, based on what is it a meme? I guess it's just he probably doesn't rate the fact that Bilam-Smith has beaten a Coley and Riapol because they're also British fighters. I don't know. I'm not saying that everybody in the American media is one-eyed when it comes to our guys. You don't want to be that kind of paranoid about it, but they do have a bit of a history of it. I think it's going back centuries almost. I think that's fair to say. I just look at every fight purely through a rational, logical lens, and you look at what Bilam-Smith has achieved at cruiserweight, and it's significant. And you look at what Ramirez has done at cruiserweight, and it's one fight at the full limit, and it's a big, big win, getting a world title. Credit given where it's due, and he is a really good fighter. But the idea that this is going to be some kind of one-sided contest, I just don't see it. I don't see it.
It's a fucking stupid statement, isn't it? It is stupid. That's an arrogance. To be honest, when most British boxers box American fighters, we do come second best. That's just the truth of it. And throughout history, American fighters have been the better fighters, American-based fighters. But it's the climate's changed a little bit. I think they're having a resurgence. I think American fighters in general, but that's just a real arrogant statement to make, and it's all based on him. I think that's dog him out now. He didn't know who I am, so who gives a shit? Come and find me. No, but that's just based on him because he's involved. But I bet you in there somebody mentions himself.
He does, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, just a guess. I don't even read it. I don't read, but I can't read. But I bet you mentioned himself about what I'm working on with him, and since I've had him and all that. But then look what you did with Deontay Wilder. You made him a better fighter, didn't you? It's not your fault. You're only as good as your fighter anyway. I always say that about trainers. Trainers are important, but you can't polish a turd. You're only as good as your fighter. And so, but you can make a fighter worse. Deontay Wilder, maybe. You got to take some credit. You take the credit. You take the blame. Then, if that's the case. And say it's a mismatch. He might go out and dominate. I don't see that. But it's not on paper. It's not a mismatch. Nothing about it on paper is a mismatch. That's just a really arrogant way to see it, and that just makes you now want Bilam-Smith to batter him. Me right now, I don't really care who wins a fight. I don't think you guys have a bias of a British fighter either, because boxing's a worldwide platform. The Zone. No, but it is. So my favourite fighter, why should he be from Britain? If my favourite fighter is from
San Antonio.
yeah. Which he is. No, well, I wanted Sonny to do really well, but I wanted Bam to win. I love Bam. I like Sonny a lot, and I had to pick Bam because I thought he would win. But if I thought Sonny would win, I would have picked Sonny, even though I might have wanted Bam to win. It's irrelevant, isn't it? But now I want Bilam-Smith to win. I don't know Bilam-Smith. I met him a couple of times. I don't know Ramirez either, so it is irrelevant to me. But I want him to win now because of that stupid comment. It's an arrogance. That's an arrogance. They're talking about you. That's just for your ego. And this podcast is for my ego.
Just before we move on from Chris Billam-Smith versus Zurdo,
Come on, Chrissy.
Zurdo Ramirez, we've been blessed in this country to have some very good cruiserweights over recent years. You mentioned Lawrence Okoli, David Hay, Enzo Macronelli.
Yes.
There we go. Johnny Nelson going back. If Chris Billam-Smith wins this, I can't name all of them, but yes, shout out Glenn McCrory as well. If Chris Billam-Smith, Tony Bellew, if Chris Billam-Smith wins this fight, where does he sit among British cruiserweights? We saw I think it was yesterday or the day before the anniversary of David Hayes' win over Jean-Marc Mormec over in Paris, which is a massive win at the time.
He showed some bottle in that fight.
Where does Chris Billam-Smith sit there? Because I mean he's beaten Lawrence Okoli, he's beaten Richard Riakporhe, he's beaten Mateusz Masternak is a good win. That's a very good win.
Still Bellew's best win, I think.
Yeah. So where does Chris Billam-Smith stand amongst those if he's able to pull it off against Zurdo Ramirez?
I think he's right up there. He has to be. I think David Hay still is the best cruiserweight we've ever had, I think. Just because of who he was, how he did it, and the Masternak win is massive. And so was the Enzo Macronelli win, by the way. That was a
Mormec.
No, so was the Macronelli win.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Macronelli.
So
the way he did it again.
There's 3 M's.
Mormec,
Masternak and Macronelli.
No, Mormec was a massive win, obviously because he's going away from home.
Yeah. And he was the best cruiserweight in the world as well.
By easily. And then obviously the Macronelli win was a huge fight at the time, and he literally didn't mess around there against a real dangerous puncher in Macronelli, who was really confident. And I know, but also Johnny Nelson's reign. That longevity thing, you can't, and he beat some good fighters. He beat a lot of not so good fighters as well. But I mean, some of his wins were better after the fact.
Yeah.
Some of the fighters Johnny went on to Guillermo Jones in the end was full of gear. but I mean, he at the time, was that a draw, that fight? Guillermo Jones, I can't remember. But I think he got criticised for it, didn't he? But I mean, looking back there, he was a good fighter, Guillermo Jones, wasn't he? Like, best uppercut I've seen since that sort of weight, that cruising light heavyweight division since Riddick Bowe. He gets whipping in like nobody. But like, so some of his wins age well, actually. So, but that longevity, you have to put him above.
Yeah, that pure longevity is impressive, isn't it?
It is.
And it's not, if you reign for that long, you're not going to be fighting all-time greats every time you make a defence, but the regularity of it, and it's impressive. I mean, it just is.
It was a draw.
What's that?
It was a draw.
It was a draw. I thought it was. Oh,
no, sure. There we go.
That was.
Encyclopedia.
No, I don't
just can't say it.
I can't. Just can't say encyclopedia.
But yeah, we have been blessed with some good ones.
But he's up there, though, isn't he? He's up there. He's up there with that. You got it. Unifying the division is not, and doing it away from home, doing it against a guy as an underdog. I mean. And also, his story, it shouldn't make a factor, but it has to make a factor. Because, I mean, you always say that, I think we should change the narrative. I know, like, more naturally talented fighters, you just didn't see his talent. Like, you see other talents more clearly. I think that's a better way to put it. More fair away in this soft world, right? But, other talent, you just see from the offset. Other talents, it takes a while to see him. And for him, it took a while to see what his talent really was. But, I mean, like if he wins, it puts him right up with one of the best. It does.
And also, we don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole about defining talent and what it actually is, but having the ability, or what people like to describe as talent or natural ability, that's one thing, but the ability to dedicate yourself and not cut corners and make the sacrifices and not succumb to temptation and to believe in yourself and train hard and to have that open mindset, that growth mindset where you take information on and you improve, what is that if it's not a talent? It's an all-round package, isn't it?
Bigger talent.
It's an even bigger talent, you could argue, because, you see it in gyms, all over the world, don't you? The perspiration outweighs inspiration. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Variations therein, and it's an all-round thing. There are so many things you need if you're going to get it. If you're going to get to the top, and people can be quite self-deprecating and say, "Well, I was never even the most talented fighter in my gym." You might not have looked the best on the pads, but as an all-round package, you obviously were, because look at what you did.
We've all spoken about it in the past as well. Hard work and discipline, and it's not for everybody.
It's not. And if you can't do it, you won't get there. You'll get to A level maybe, but you won't get there.
Second, just messing.
Are we keeping you for something?
No, there's a message in the editor.
He's writing down your quotes.
Yeah. So Clark.
And then what you do is the way that you do it. That's
but we've all spoken about this in the past. I mean, you tell a really good story about going to meet Chris Bilam-Smith and asking about whether or not he drinks, and he says he's not talented enough to drink. And as we know, not every fighter subscribes to that. Some fighter thinks they're so talented that they can drink, and it doesn't affect them until it does.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, those extra 1% and those little bits that you can sort of squeeze out of what you've got is a talent in itself.
It
you
is.
know, not everybody can do that.
Yeah, exactly. If it was easy, everyone would do it. If training hard and sticking to the plan and sticking to the diet sheet, and if it was easy to do that, everyone would do it. But they don't all do it, do they?
But you know what? I think where it helps with, and I was a little bit like that myself, is when you're not this superstar talent that's obvious to everyone, including yourself. Then when you do start winning, the buzz. It's the buzz for everyone. But you know when people just expect I'm going to be this multi-weight world champion or whatever, it's always multi-weight world champion. And it's like just fucking one. Oh, you know you're going to get heavier. But I mean, but you know, they some people just turn pro expecting it. Most others just wish it. So when those wishes come true, I mean, you know the problem is when you move up the levels and get close to the high at the top of the tree, you see the shittiest part of the sport, ironically. But I mean also, you know, like for him now, Bilam-Smith, everything's inspirational.
Yeah,
everything's a buzz. He's unifying. There's not one fight he can't get up for anymore.
Yeah, that's such a good point actually, because
you know, for people like and longevity, Johnny Nelson, that's Joe Calzaghe I've mentioned. I can't shut up about him, but like. He expected to be a world champion because he knew he was going to be, and he was, obviously.
And that brings a different kind of pressure, doesn't it? That can really
and also
empty your tank. Because if you, that is a really, really good point, because if you turn pro and the expectation is that you will achieve a certain level, then on your way there, when you keep winning, it's probably just relief. And also, isn't it? And when you get there, it might just be relief that you haven't let everybody down and that you've turned out to be what people said you were. Whereas if you're constantly seen to be overachieving, then you probably enjoy it a lot more.
And even Bilam-Smith, he's boxing in a stadium, like he's at. But I mean, what's that indoor arena they went in first?
The Bic's great.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, every time he boxed in there, he would be buzzing. Even now, even though he's been in stadiums now twice, he would be could that just. But for someone like Calzaghe, people like them sort of people who expect to be where they are. They filled their local. It was a CIA, it was called, in Cardiff Indoor Arena. They filled that up a couple of times. Then it was like, why are they in the stadium? So every time he felt that wasn't a buzz for him anymore. I don't know, but I'm guessing that's what it is. And it's like, what the fuck is this now? Who am I fighting here now? And then when he goes in the stadium, that's different for him. Then, it's like there's only 40,000 in here. Like, you know, they always want more. That's what makes them great fighters, because nothing good enough for them. But for people like Bilam-Smith, he's going to be like. Everything's an inspiration for. I mean, this is his biggest fight of his career. No, it is. You know, you always go back to the Okoli fight being the biggest fight. That's his first time he won a world title. But for this now, to be a unified champion, you're going on a different level here now.
A win here, you know, this kind of solidifies. I mean, he's not. You know, he's 34. Chris Billam-Smith.
Looks good for it, doesn't he?
But a win here, really, and then you kind of roll into an Opataya fight or whatever kind of happens on that. You're talking about, you know, we all talk about it. Get to the end of your career is where you make your money. These are the big ones. He wins this and can go into an Opataya fight as a unified champion. And, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with Opataya and whether Mikhailian's going to, or Givor or whatever we're calling him nowadays, is going to box and defend or unify. But you would imagine that the winner of this fight gets a really big fight on the back of it as well. So it is at that stage, and you know it's
a winnable fight as well.
Very much so against a guy who's fought once at the weight. You know, what's take Arsene Goulamirian out of it, which was a good win, but there's all those asterisks around it. What's his best win? Zurdo Ramirez, Jesse Hart,
could be
Max Vlasov.
See, obviously, I know. Get what's his name on the phone? What's his name?
Who?
The former heavyweight who bottled it against Chisora.
Which one?
Oh, Malik Scott.
Oh, Malik Scott.
I never said his name.
As I said, don't get me in trouble with any heavyweights, but I've seen Malik Scott. I'll be fine. I'll be all right.
He's married to Kate Abdo.
He is, yeah.
You may well run into him.
No, I don't know.
I'm not sure Kate Abdo watches this, but anyway, we'll move on. Packed night in Riyadh. We will come back for our predictions, but we're not going to break down the whole card because we are going to
watch them all last night.
Because we are going to move on and talk about Friday night's offering from the wonderfully licensed state of Texas. for Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Andy, gonna come to you first.
It is a bit like that. It is a bit like that because I look at Jake Paul's involvement in boxing, and he's hinted or teased us every now and again that he does want to test himself against fighters that we would describe as legitimate pros, and he did it once against Tommy Fury, although he'd been inactive and was doing other things, but was seen as a legitimate pro. But he hasn't done it outside of that. But this occasion on Friday night, number one, it's brilliant for everybody else on the card because they're going to get really well paid. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor's a great fight, and it's great for everybody else involved in it. It's really interesting for the sport for it to be on Netflix because that's got a huge subscriber base. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of numbers it does and what they might think about things going forward. As for the actual matchup itself, we might have to cut this bit out, I don't know, but I don't believe that although they say, no, this is a properly sanctioned fight and knockouts are allowed and blah-de-blah, that might be the case as far as the commission are concerned, but I do not believe that a private conversation hasn't been had here.
Allegedly, bruv.
And a script worked out as to what can and cannot or will and will not happen. I find that hard to believe. And I really hope that it is the case because if they box the 8 rounds and give everybody a little bit of a show, then fine. But I don't want to see anybody get knocked out here. I know a few people might feel like it wouldn't be the worst thing if Jake Paul got knocked out because that would be Mike Tyson, uncorking and rolling back the years. And he definitely could knock him out if he catches him because he can still punch. But what we absolutely cannot see happen here is a 30-year-old, albeit one of limited ability, but one who trains hard
27
and is physically strong, 27, knock out a 58-year-old? That absolutely cannot happen. And not just because he's one of our greats. Just think about it. A 27-year-old against a 58-year-old in a combat sport, and everybody thinks that's okay for the younger man to chin the older man. That can't happen. And that's why I think a conversation will have been had, because I don't think Jake Paul wants to knock out Mike Tyson. I think he will know that there would be quite a big backlash were he to do that, because Tyson is that famous that even the younger generation who follow Jake Paul, they know who he is and they know what he did. And surely they can't be thinking that that would mean that Jake Paul then somehow subsumes all of Mike Tyson's achievements as a boxer. So as long as that conversation has been had, I'm fine with it. If it hasn't been had, then it's an absolute shambles and a disgrace and should not be happening.
Barry?
It's a really interesting fight.
It's not on the zone.
It's not? Well, it's fucking awful. Whew, thank God for that. Let's go for the list of channels I might work for. No, then there's shit.
That's fine. Netflix,
but how can you...
Netflix is small. You don't need to worry.
No, but I think they're building a Netflix.
If we don't, if there isn't a kind of script in place for it, then how can you justify licensing a 27-year-old against a 58-year-old?
I mean, it is. I mean, I kind of
it's
tongue-in-cheek alluded to it. It's in Texas. There's a reason why it's in Texas. You're not going to get that licensed in any other state.
I mean, you'll find a commission in America who would be willing to do it, wouldn't you? You would.
Yeah, probably.
Have
like Texas.
But I mean, that's the thing.
It's
like,
the sort of
you've
thing
got
is
50
if Texas would have said no, then
they would have found someone else.
Yeah, they would have found someone else. But I would have really liked to have seen who was next on the
but
list.
Then it borders on discrimination, because then you just go, well, no, if I pass all the medicals, why shouldn't you let me the box?
So I had a conversation with Dr. Neil Scott, Chief Medical Officer of the British Boxing Board of Control, and also heavily featured in the Knockout
Star Man
by Andy Clark, Sports Most Decisive Moment. You can get that now on Amazon. You can also get the audio book if you're bored of listening to Andy Scott. I'll read it to you. But anyway, Dr. Neil Scott, the Chief Medical Officer of the British Boxing Board of Control.
It doesn't matter. Everybody does it at some point.
Neil Scott, Andy Clark.
It doesn't matter.
That's okay. That's all right. That's fine. Anyway, we plug it enough.
Tell us about Neil Clark.
Neil Clark, Neil Scott of the British Boxing Board of Control. Yeah, I mean, we had a very insightful conversation, which made it into boxing news this week, where you're basically talking about the fact that, you know, for all of Mike Tyson's accolades, he's a 58-year-old man, and repeated head trauma and traumatic brain injury is not something that just stops happening if you stop getting hit in the head.
Is he showing signs of it though?
But has he been hit by?
I don't think he has shown signs. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it's difficult. But once the kind of point I was sort of trying to make there before I called Andy Scott. Was that once you get passed on your medicals, that's it. After that, you have to treat Mike Tyson as fighter A and Jake Paul as fighter B, because they're both passed, they're both deemed fit for competition. But surely there has to become an element of it where you do look at it and think it's a 58-year-old man.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? And also you've got to think about the people who are going about Mike Tyson, who was a phenomenon, whose candle burned very quickly. By the way, his career it was amazing, but when he was done, he was done.
And he was done in his early mid-20s.
Yeah, that prime Tyson, the kind of mythological prime Tyson, that's 35 years ago, 36
by the
years
time
ago.
he got to Lennox Lewis, he was already on.
Way before then. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was one of the travesties of that little era, wasn't it? But I mean, so the 80s, he was it. The 90s, but his last fight. What was his last fight? Was that McBride?
McNeely was the first one out of prison.
Yeah, but against McBride, he got shot then. When was that?
2005.
There you go. That's almost 25 years ago.
Almost 20
years ago. Sorry, I can't count.
But he was so
that's why I can't box
at that point.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So you look at him then. So the people go, Tyson. They'll show clips of him being awesome.
10-second clip.
But this happened during the pandemic, didn't it? So when the pandemic happened, everyone was sitting inside doing nothing, and those clips of Mike Tyson started to appear, and then he did the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones.
Yeah, exactly. And
you've got two old boys,
and that was an exhibition. And the reason why you don't have seniors or vets competitions in boxing, because it's too dangerous. And the conversation was had between those two that they were going to have a move around, do some flurries, but get through the 8 rounds, and that was how it was going to be. Now, if we all get up on Saturday morning, and that's what's happened, that they've done the 8 rounds, and nobody's laid a glove on each other, but we get to the end of it, and people think, oh, okay, we see what happened there, I will be absolutely delighted. Whether people will feel like, well, people who don't necessarily follow the sport and don't really know, whether they'll feel like, oh, well, that was a robbery and a con job because it wasn't a proper fight, then, more fool you for...
Is there betting?
Yeah.
I don't think Jake Paul gives a shit.
I don't think he cares.
I don't blame him. Like, it's not like he's coming to the sport and he's helped people. Look at Amanda Serrano's benefited massively from his involvement.
He has done some good things, and that's the contradictory thing about
him.
In one way,
he's
used the sport for his own end, and you can't deny that. But in another way, yeah, I mean, you look at this card and you look at other things that he's done. I remember Nina Minka was supposed to fight Amanda Serrano, and it didn't happen, did it? And she got paid in full. Things like that. These are good things. And who knows? In 10 years' time, when we're covering fights, we might talk to young fighters who say, "Well, actually, I got into boxing because I was really into the YouTube scene, and they started boxing, and so I went to the gym." That kind of impact is impossible to quantify at the moment, but it could happen. But
I just don't see.
I mean, Christ! If he knocks out Mike Tyson,
well, we had
he'll try. I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he's good enough not to. I don't think he can coach. I think he's been boxing for a little while now. He's
either boxing or he's not. If he's boxing, he's gonna.
He's not good enough to. Especially with, Tyson will know how to manage him. Like, even at this age now, but even he's naturally heavy-handed, and he'll throw a shot, and because of his home, the way he throws his hooks, he engages his legs. So when he comes up, he might reduce a bit, but he'll still have a bit of snap on it. And if Jake Paul feels one of those, he'll panic and throw back. So, and that's still a young, big guy throwing back at an old guy.
That's a good point.
I know I say about that peripheral vision thing, you don't see the shot, and that's why, as people say, you can't take a punch, you don't see him. And Tyson won't be able to see the shots like he could years ago. You just don't. I'm not having to go with him, it's just how it is. And Tyson could knock him out, by the way, even now.
Yeah.
But your fast twitch fibers go down like that, don't they, as you get older?
Your peripheral vision gets worse.
Yeah, but also you can't accelerate with your punches or your legs anymore than you could back in the day. I'm in my 50s. I'm a hyperactive little lunatic, aren't I? But even I've slowed down with everything dramatically, except my mouth. But it's gone faster. But I mean, you do slow down. You don't think you do until you actually see yourself and go. This is why I don't ever go to a boxing gym, because boxing training is quite cathartic, isn't it? Not to me, because everything I do is just like, oh.
No, it'd be the worst possible thing. Yeah, I can imagine the frustration of it would be.
And it must be like that for Tyson. It just I don't care what he's doing in the gym. He's not doing nothing as near as he could do. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. But I mean,
But that's that again. Like, you're making lots of good points today. That's a really good point about Jake Paul just not being good enough or experienced enough to have a move around and make it look good. Roy Jones and Mike Tyson can do that, which they did to an extent, but it was pretty obvious what was happening.
Hang on a minute. Today.
Yeah.
What the fuck's that supposed to mean? That's a backhand. What a backhand comment.
Again, you're on fire.
but I'm not going to feel sorry if he knocks out Mike Tyson. Like, because Mike Tyson's taking the fight.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I wanted to discuss. There has never been a fighter who has been exploited both willingly and unwillingly in the same extent as Mike Tyson.
I don't think there's been an athlete in any sport
potentially
in
not
history.
But he knows, and don't get me wrong, not all of it. He knew what was going on, and he was not a party to all of it. But he understood. I mean, when he was active, he would say, "Look, we're pieces of meat. We're here. I'm a dysfunctional mother, whatever. You know, I'm here because you're paying me. I'm going to fight this guy. Bring him on. Whatever."
He's been used and abused, but he's used and abused other people.
Exactly, and he'll be under no illusions here that if it is a real fight or whatever, make sure my money's right. And if he knocks me out, he knocks me out. I think the person who'll be least bothered about getting stopped would be probably Mike Tyson. But as long as the money's there, because he knows exactly what he signed up for.
He's not the kid who was being manipulated now. No, he knows everything now. He's learned through past experiences. Like the man who had 400 million and
pissed it all away. Yeah, he did.
Most of it. He spent most of it himself. That's I know people stole off him and all that. It was horrific, and that's a shame for most sportsmen because they didn't have the education. Unfortunately, that's another issue. That's another podcast. Actually, that is not yours. Someone else I'll do that with. But I mean, it's but he knows what he's doing. He's taking the money. I mean, we always need money, but I think even though like you haven't got the money you used to have, you still got plenty of money. I mean, I don't blame him for taking the money, but I don't feel sorry for him if he gets knocked out either, because everyone could do this, couldn't they? But people don't. You guys got to point in your life is like, as much as I need the money, I want the money. It's not like a young kid who's having to take an opportunity above his level because this money will change his life forever. This money that Tyson's going to get here, I would imagine it's mega money, by the way. Would it change his life dramatically? I don't know.
He'd still be able to. He'd still be able to say no to the fight and still live a life that's more comfortable than 99.9%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that Jake Paul is the big bad wolf here, and Mike Tyson is some kind of hapless victim. Sure. That's not what I'm saying. It's just. I mean, how can you?
Boxing's a slag, isn't it?
Yeah, how can you? How can you license a 27-year-old to fight a 58-year-old? That's it for me. Like, how can you do that? I just don't get it.
And it's kind of.
Well, I do get it, and it's money, but is it? For my purposes, I'm kind of hoping it's a con job.
Yeah.
But is that any better for the sport? Again, actually, just thinking about it now, thinking about it in real time, is that any better for the sport if people wake up on Saturday morning and think? We've been
because also conned. Then you start thinking that then the layman, and bearing in mind this is we mentioned it downstairs. There was a kind of a big gotcha exclusive report by one of the American newspapers who said
you should all meet us downstairs.
Yeah, exactly. that podcast is fantastic.
Oh, much better.
But anyway, where they said it'll only be seen by between 25 and 30 million people. I mean. That's not bad. It's on the homepage of Netflix. So when you flick it on, it's on the homepage.
I mentioned on yesterday's podcast that I went to see a non-league football match on Saturday. And as I was walking around the side of the pitch behind the goal, I overheard people talking about this fight.
Yeah,
genuinely,
it's right there. If you're on Netflix, so like everybody else, just scrolling through stuff without actually watching anything, it's on there. Yeah, the build-up stuff's on there, as you would expect. It's very well produced. It is Mike Tyson, who is still one of, if not the most famous men in the world. Who's more well-known than Mike Tyson? Okay, people will say maybe Ronaldo and Messi now, but I mean, they've not been household names for 40 years like this man has. It's gonna. The point where I'm making with that is that if 20 million people watch it and they're entertained and they want to come back, like, isn't this the positive? Isn't the positive side that it's going to be seen by so many people?
The reason I don't give a shit about the fight,
I'm not saying that's right, by the way, but that's the positive sell, isn't it? That's the one that you but it's going to be seen by all of these people. It's going to do this. It's going to do that.
I don't know how many, like the whole thing about the YouTube thing, the YouTube phenomenon, and the X, what's it called now? That goes on the Zone.
X series.
But even that, like, what I'm saying is, I don't think that brings any more viewers to actual boxing. I don't think it brings a significant amount of fighters, kids into the sport. I don't. It might. I don't care. Whatever brings you into the sport brings you into the sport. Most. I walked into boxing by accident. There was a boxing gym, and my brother went. I just followed him, like most kids do. I didn't go, I want to be a boxer. I was 10. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a fire engine. I wanted to be a chocolate biscuit. I didn't know you don't know what you want to be, do you? It's just, but I mean, so wherever you get into sport, it's not. It's just mainly it's an accident. You just find something you're good at, you're not good at it, or you love it. But I mean, I don't even worry about that sport. I don't see it as boxing. Even this fight, even though it's it's a sanctioned fight, and it's involved in boxing, I will watch it, but I'll watch the undercard. I won't watch it live.
Yeah, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano is
but the few fights on the undercard are good. Little Kalas was always really good to watch, and so you watch it for that. Barrios, of course, against Ramos. There's a couple of good fights on it, so I'll watch that, and I'll watch the main fight because it's there. But I wouldn't break my back to watch it. I wouldn't pay to watch it.
No,
Guarantee you.
I can't see myself getting up at whatever time in the morning to watch it on Saturday morning.
It is what it is, isn't it? That's what it is. What it is. I mean, boxing's already been infiltrated now already. I mean, like I said, like boxing's the biggest whore in sports. It will do anything, boxing, to make money. I mean, and we're all guilty of it because we all, the things we all bend our morals to adjust our pay packets. All of us. In life, you have to. I mean, life. If we could all be one straight down the line, we'd all be poor, wouldn't we? That's the truth of it. We'd all be unemployed. In this sport, we'd definitely be unemployed. But in life, you just have to adjust and move on.
You have to make your mind up, don't
and
you?
try and be as strong as you possibly can to what makes you feel good inside. But ultimately, that's what it is. So I just go. I don't see that as a real fight.
Do you think more people would more, or do you think it would affect how many people watched it if it was an exhibition and they were saying it was an exhibition?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. I don't think it's an exhibition. I think Jake Paul could try and knock him out. Why will he care, Jake Paul? He
thrives off negativity, doesn't he? Negative press is better press than good press.
But I have seen the odd thing for him that makes me think that he does care about the sport in some ways.
I just have somebody said to me about it the other day about when Evander Holyfield boxed that Vitor Belfort on the Triller card, and you just see Holyfield get hit and floundering around on the canvas, and they said, I think that's going to happen. And since he said that, I've kind of not stopped thinking about that, and that really is quite unsettling, isn't it? If he goes out and he irons him out in a round or 30 seconds,
all it'll be to him, I knocked up the great.
Yeah,
and he'll say it's not, obviously. He'll say I knocked out the greatest boxer in history. I knocked him out. That's all he'll say. Yeah. Like he was calling out. He called out Canelo, wouldn't he? He's calling out Canelo. Like, and he'd call out Chocolatito. He wouldn't care about the size difference. He don't give a shit. I mean, he might love the sport because, like, once you're involved in boxing, once you do the training as well, as you all know, because you've been. It's addictive, isn't it? So you do love the boxing is a sport you can fall in love with quite quickly, even though, and then obviously it can make you feel sick quite quickly as well. But you do fall in love with it. That's why we're all still involved. That's why a lot of people who don't need to be involved, they're still involved because it's addictive. But he'll move on to something else. If he knocks up Mike Tyson, everyone hates him. He'll just go, oh, okay, he'll move on to something else, and then that'll be his passion, and all his fans will follow him. He's his own machine.
They'd watch him do anything.
And I don't blame him for that. I don't blame him. I blame the sport. But I don't blame any one person in the sport because it's all about making money. And it's one of those things. You're damned if you, damned if you don't.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's
difficult.
It's wishful thinking. I just feel like
Mike Tyson out and tell you he won't go easy.
I mean, what I'm not kind of trying to pat ourselves on the back here, but what we do know is the British Boxing Board of Control would never have entertained this, licensing this, never. Well, because they weren't going to license Eubank Ben, were they? Or Steve Collins Ben, or whatever it was.
Give further than the license.
Yeah, and the reason they weren't was...
They gave one to Freddie Flintoff. I wish they didn't.
Yeah, but they regret that.
A debutant as well.
But they regret that.
But I worked that fight.
No, he wasn't fighting a
debutant. So you're talking about all this model thing. I worked that fight.
But they regret that. And that the reason that Ferdinand, from what I'm told, didn't get licensed is because they regret that Flintoff episode.
Yeah, I bet Freddie Flintoff regrets it as well. But anyway.
Either way, though, he'll try and knock Mike Tyson out. But also, we try and knock someone out, you get exposed as well.
Lennox Lewis thinks Tyson's going to chin him.
Well, that could easily happen.
Lennox don't really care. Lennox haven't got a clue of he, to be fair. I mean, he's one of the greatest heavyweights of his generation of all time, actually, and he's a brilliant fighter, but he won't fight.
But
probably hasn't seen Jake Paul fight.
Would you say that Tyson, even at 58, and I know that, we see a 10-second clip, but has he got a handful of feints and explosive hooks in him, and that
Can
if he
he-
lands one,
He could close the gap really quick.
if he lands one of them, that'll be enough. That could be enough.
I mean, with
because
the
Jake Paul
advancements in
won't
sports
have
science,
experienced anything like that.
He'll come in, he'll have
I was
like
gonna
3
say.
heads all of a sudden like that.
you know,
That'll go quite quick, won't it? In the fight, that explosivity that he'll need to knock somebody out
He'll be
will go
blown,
quite
he'll be
quick.
blown out of his ass if it goes past 3 rounds.
Right.
Like Tyson
8-2s
will.
though as well. That's surely going to be a tick in his
But he's
favour.
dangerous
Yeah,
for a bit.
I think so. And also, like, he'll have the know-how and all the rest of it. And what he wants to do is throw when Paul's throwing. That's what he needs. Because Paul, as much as he'd be nice and sharp, I mean, it takes a long time, to commit to a shot and not do this.
Yeah.
Not do that with your hands. Because they work in unison. And when you walk,
It's like they're on a rope, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they do. So to be able to try and stay like this and put everything into it and like that, I mean, the best pros in the world would struggle to do it. So he's going to make there'd be a mistake made there. So all it takes for Tyson is to feint and slip.
Imagine he does it.
Mike Tyson.
Well, I mean, it's possible to do like exactly a feint. You just
Fake, draws the jab and comes over the top with an overhand
Mike
right.
Tyson.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson.
Down goes Paul.
Slipping his head coming forward was one of the most fearsome sights to see because you knew something was happening. Once he went, whoop, you know, you watch it, you go, oh, here we go. Someone's head's getting taken off. So you never know. But I mean, you've got to go with a younger guy who hasn't had millions of fights, hasn't abused his body. Who's not a pensioner.
Yeah.
Or 2 years from being a pensioner, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, like what?
You get a bus pass in 2 years' time in this country.
I mean,
Mike Tyson.
one kind of like last thing on it, which is not related to the fight at all, but I was really pleased to see that my pal Big Mo is doing the MCing.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's doing the MCing. I was talking to him about it a while ago, and he was in originally, and then it got postponed, and he wasn't quite sure what was happening. And you never assume anything in boxing, do you? Things can change, but he's on it, and really pleased for him because that's a massive. Whatever we might say or think about it, he's a really good guy, and whatever we might say or think about it, the eyeballs on it are going to be immense.
He's such a nice bloke. He compared this. He did the ring announcement for the show I did, this charity show I did on Thursday. Yeah, I'm watching him. He's such a lovely bloke, and he's like 6'7" or something. He's massive, and I'm picking things out. His ears are a bit big.
Something for you to work on there, Big Mo.
Good-looking guy, and he's a good-looking guy. He's a lovely bloke. He's really good at his job. He's immaculately dressed, and all. His ears are a little bit big.
Barry holds ring announcers to a completely different standard than everybody else.
No, it's just because you can't. He's just too nice. So there's got to be something wrong for me to like him.
There we go.
Go on, Cody.
Ears.
Cody, you got big ears. You haven't got big ears, but they're just bigger than my head.
Right, away from the ear chat. Right, we've got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to have to be quite quick, and we're not really going to be able to give this the time and focus that it indeed deserves. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano rematch. 2.5 years on from their fantastic first fight in Madison Square Garden. Andy naturally goes under the radar to the main event, but also because of the main event, is probably on a bigger platform than I think anyone could have really anticipated it being on.
Yeah, absolutely. If you set the main event aside and say that that's not what we would classify as proper boxing, this is going to be the biggest audience any pro fight has had potentially for a really, really long time. We're talking back in the terrestrial TV days where figures were obviously much, much higher than they are now. It's potentially huge, and they're both getting paid really well. The biggest purse for a female fight ever by distance, I would imagine, and so it's kind of historic in that sense. And Christ, I mean, these are just legends, aren't they? Basically, you've got to love the pair of them because they really would fight anyone. Serrano, I don't think is appreciated as much as she should be because undisputed at featherweight, and that is what she is. But she stepped up to lightweight to box Taylor the first time, super lightweight this time. She's brilliant at traversing the weights. 7-weight world champion. I know that a lot of them are vacant titles and the depth isn't the same, but the professionalism to do it in the way that she's done it is really impressive. And that first fight was tremendous and really close. Really close. And Serrano didn't make any kind of a fuss about the decision. But we always wanted to see it again. And we get to see it again. And they're both a little bit further down the track. Serrano, like I say, is unified at featherweight since. You wouldn't feel like she's taken too much gas out of her tank, although obviously you're getting older. Whereas Taylor's had some hard fights since. And maybe that'll play a part.
Barry, who do you think the delay has helped more? Or did you think it's helped either woman?
No, I think they've got I think there's more wear and tear on Taylor, certainly, but the weight's going to help her massively, I think. I know moving at the lightweight was going to be a bit more of an ask for the first fight against Serrano, but no, super lightweight. That's a bigger stretch again. And it's the same woman, but a woman who's been boxing at that weight now for a couple of fights. So it's going to be I think that makes Taylor the favourite still. I think that Serrano's probably the fresher of the two, but she hasn't looked great either, to be fair. I mean, and again, I'm boxing down, still staying down at featherweight. Again, you can box someone who's physically stronger, but though Taylor doesn't really dine out on strength, it's in that movement and combinations. So and because they are, further down the track, very well put that, Andy. It makes it an exciting fight. I don't think they're the same fight as they were, back when they boxed in New York, but because of that, it probably make it a good spectacle to watch, because I think they both suffered on the stretch, both of them.
That fight in New York, Andy, was kind of a fight of three parts, really, wasn't it? Katie Taylor in the early rounds, it was controlling the distance, using that jab and the natural size advantage. Those middle rounds where she held her feet, Serrano really got on top and started to land, and I think it was the sixth round that was really torrid for Katie Taylor before Taylor really managed to go back to her boxing to I guess secure the win. She did secure the win.
Yeah,
down the stretch.
I was listening to it on the radio actually. I couldn't get the pictures to work on my phone for whatever reason. So I listened to the radio.
Sorry.
Yeah. And
it was a good fight, honestly.
It was a great fight, and listening to you, Big Ron, Bunsey. Now those are three guys who I think could read a fight really well, and I got to the end and I thought, Christ, I really don't know who's going to get this, because I don't think you lads really knew.
No,
in the middle of the fight, you were saying basically this is turning Serrano's way. Taylor is going to have to dig in big time to kind of get a foothold back in this. On the scores, it's close. Serrano maybe nose in front, but momentum is with her, and Taylor somehow managed to get enough of it back to win the fight. But at the end, it sounded to me like this could go any which way.
My point on the kind of the ebbs and flows of the fight is, if this is more of I guess the middle part of that fight, where Taylor, because she's a little bit further down the stretch, she's had those hard fights with Chantel Cameron, does that play into Amanda Serrano's favour? Admittedly up at 140 pounds, but if Taylor doesn't have that bounce in her step, if she doesn't have that control of distance that she's shown previously, that surely plays into the hands of, still, admittedly, the smaller woman, but the puncher in this fight.
Yeah, you would think so. But Taylor's had about she had 4 fights at least where you just go, she's not going to be able to produce the goods again. I mean, and that Serrano fight, there you go. I thought that was her last fight. That was her last. She's not going to be able to put on the performance like she did there. That's it. No, you can't keep dipping in the well. You have to pay the piper at some point in your career. And I thought that was it. That was too hard. I mean, that iconic. It's an iconic moment, I think, in the sporting history. Like in the last round where she dips, gets caught with a shot, she dips, and her knee is literally like a couple of inches off the floor. And if that knee touches the floor, she loses the fight. And she finds the strength to keep it off the floor, just to stay up. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, we didn't see it. We didn't notice it on the night. I mean, I watched back when I watched the fight back, and you see it, and you go, oh God, she's dipped, she's hurt, and she just somehow just finds the strength. And that all got to touch the floor. A referee goes one standing count, and she loses the fight. I mean that was just summed up the whole thing. It really did. So. Can she do that? I can't.
Had 2 hard fights against Cameron since
then. You got to bet against it. If it turns into that sort of fight, if the middle stages are really tough and hard for her, can she pull it back? And you got to keep saying no. But I've said that a lot of times, and
exactly.
She does. So but yeah, there comes a time where you go in your pocket and there's no change left in there. There's something. So one day you're going to be empty. It might be now, but can Serrano push her? Can she force her into that sort of fight? I don't know. With that naturally bigger size now as well. And Serrano's not the freshest of fighters anymore either. I don't think. And Katie still that natural bounce that Katie has is always going to be there. That's her default. That in and out with the feet. Actually, that's all she's done through her whole career. Actually, if you look at her, she's been quite brilliantly basic. Katie Taylor, she's done the same thing her whole career and got away with it.
No, she's less with combinations, more singles. As
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
got
yeah.
older, it's a little bit more single shots. But yeah, the style is the same.
Yeah, it's been really effective for her, and she didn't change it because she didn't have to, and now she can't because that's all she is. But I mean, so Serrano, she got to try and make Taylor work really hard for very early on, and just try and hit her and believe that whoever far behind you are in the early stages, mid-range stage, she's going to empty, I think. So at that point, I probably make.
We're going to come on to the fight predictions now. We're going to start. We're going to start with Chris Billam-Smith versus Zurdo Ramirez, just to give you a little bit of time to think about your Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano pick as well. We're going to start with the main event. Barry, going to come to you first. Gilberto Ramirez versus Chris Billam-Smith.
Yeah. I think Ramirez just nicks it on points. Actually, yeah, I do. I do. I think he will. I think it's a really hard fight, and I think Bilam-Smith can win it, but I just think Ramirez will just find the bounce in his step, just to find the gaps to throw those 3-4 darting punches and just be able to move around the target. I think Bilam-Smith would be a little bit too flat-footed. I think he has to close the gap and be physically strong. I think that'll make him a little bit more too grounded to close the gap quick enough.
Okay, Andy, are you doing the card?
Yeah,
oh, come on,
yeah, but I'll split decision. I'm not going to say who to.
You're going to go for a split.
I think
decision.
it's going to be close.
Predicting a split decision. Oh, the Twitterati are not going to be happy with you.
I think it's going to be close.
Andy Clark. I'm going to go for Chris Billam-Smith by decision. I think this is.
Guys, McGuigan fight.
No, I think this is a good fight for him. I think the natural size advantage will be significant. I mean, you've got a guy who was 168 pounds and 175 pounds not too long ago, 175, not 168. Yeah. I think he's always had the physical advantages in every fight he's had, apart from Arsene Gulamirian, who had one fight in 4 years, and what was his best win up to that point as well, and I feel like in those fights with Joe Smith Jr., it's 190 or 193 it was, but you've got again another guy who's a light heavyweight, not a cruiserweight, and against Arsene Gulamirian, I think he's got a very good chin, Ramirez, but I think he definitely felt the weight in the shots in both of those fights. Gulamirian just didn't do enough of it. And I think it will come down to the natural size advantage. I think Chris Billam-Smith needs to be busy. I think he needs to be busier throughout rounds than potentially he has been in the past, because he still does box in spurts, but it's consistent spurts, if that makes sense.
Well, he just when Ramirez, sorry,
that's okay. That's kind of how I think the natural body of work at cruiserweight and being able to compete at that weight, at that level, 12 rounds. He is a very experienced campaigner now, Chris Billam-Smith, at the weight, whereas Gilberto Ramirez isn't. As I mentioned earlier, I do feel like a lot of his best wins came a pretty unflattering level at 175 pounds, and I think the natural size and physicality will see Chris Billam-Smith home.
I hope so, actually.
So yes, that's how I see it. Anyway, okay. Right, Andy, going to come to you first. Jose Ramirez against Arnold Barboza Jr. Okay, we haven't broken these fights down, but they're still happening.
I'll break my rule for these, because we have no skin in these games, do we? Basically, I'd pick Ramirez. I think Ramirez is still a good fighter. He's only lost one fight. That was to Josh Taylor. He is quite. You could describe him as quite route one, as in this is what I do now. You're going to have to try and stop me. And the only person who has been able to stop him is Josh Taylor, who is brilliant. Quite simply.
Barry?
Yeah, I do. I think he's still fresh enough to make Barboza work. I'm not sure though, but I still fancy him. I'm not sold on Barboza, that's why. I think more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm not sold on either guy. Particularly at this stage of his career, Jose Ramirez had a really hard fight against Francis Barthelemy last time out. Looked very vulnerable. Yeah. And I don't know whether or not it's just him making 140 still after all this time.
I was kind of surprised that he's
been a big boy, but again, like they haven't had that many options.
No.
When he's been at top rank, they haven't had that many options for him at welterweight. So you can sort of see why. But yeah, Barboza was really, really poor against Sean McComb. I thought he lost 9 out of 10 rounds against Sean McComb. I don't think that fight was remotely close.
No, that was a stinker.
But you've got somebody in Sean McComb who, stylistically couldn't really be any different to Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I'm going to go for Ramirez decision. I really had no idea
it's
at that
good
point.
one,
I don't
isn't it?
know how much Ramirez has got left, and I don't know how much Barboza had in the first place. So we'll see. William Zepeda versus Tevin Farmer. Barry, going to come to you first.
Zepeda by stoppage. Just win. I think you can't keep him off you, can you? I think it goes 4.
Andy?
How's that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to say Zepeda, don't you?
Yeah, I'm going to
Farmer's a good fighter, by the way. But
Yeah, I had a good showing against Raymond Murataya. Kind of what we talked about Murataya earlier. It's like the exact opposite of the style that he knows and goes. But whereas Zepeda has boxed a couple of tricky southpaws in Maxi Hughes. He boxed. What's the guy's name? He boxed Giovanni
Cabrera.
Yes, who's like a very awkward, negative.
Tall,
Yeah. And I just feel like as sharp as Farmer will look for 60 seconds or so of the first round, I think he's not just a pressure fighter, Zepeda. He's a boxer, puncher, pressure. He could do a bit of everything. And I think that's a really, really hard night for Tevin Farmer. Anyway, right. Andy, going to come to you. Oscar Duarte against Batir Akhmedov.
So this was going to be Kenneth Sims, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So this is quite a late change. I've not really seen that much of Akhmedov since he was on the undercard of Porter Spence when he lost narrowly to Barrios, didn't he? Mario Barrios. That was a good fight. Yeah, I mean, he's not had too long to prepare for it, so I think I'll probably make Duarte the front runner in that one for that reason, really.
Not sure.
Was that it?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Duarte, but I'm not confident about
I mean,
that.
a lot for me
So-
depends on whether or not Akhmedov is fit. If he's fit,
Yeah.
and because he is a handful.
Oh, no, he is big time, yeah.
I thought he beat Kenneth Sims. I thought he beat Albert Puello, and he got dropped a couple of times by Mario Barrios, but a very close fight that he also could have nicked. You know, on another day or in another life, he's a 13-0 unbeaten world champion.
Yeah, but he's not, though, is he? That's the
He's
thing.
not, but I think this is a better fight than Duarte against Sims.
No,
I think that had a very clear pattern to it. You've got, like Sims is flashy and on the outside,
I
whereas
mean,
these two are going to go like
it's a
that.
great late replacement, isn't it?
These two are going to go straight at each other and throw big bombs. I'm going to go for Akhmedov. Yeah, I'm going to go for Akhmedov to win a decision.
Ooh.
Yeah. Duarte's dangerous, isn't he?
Yeah,
And he's
he is.
heavy-handed, and I think
That's
Akhmedov
what
is.
when you're not quite sure, you just half edge that, don't you?
Yeah, I just think Akhmedov has better fundamentals. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter, but Duarte's very heavy-handed. Punched the fuck out of Jojo Diaz. I remember it was his last fight or a couple of fights ago. Yeah. Okay, and then the last fight on the card. Again, we haven't discussed this one. Oscar Collazo, Barry against knockout CP Freshmart for the for the WBO. The WBO and WBA, WBO and WBA. So it's just threw me because they don't register on Box Rec anymore.
Why have they done
It's
that?
a long story, man. Basically, the WBA were improper with some of the things that they did with Box Rec, and Box Rec fell out with them. Anyway, Oscar Collazo against knockout CP Freshmart. Barry.
Yeah, I thought it was on the the Texas bill. He's good. He's good to watch. I like him. He's enjoyable. He is, isn't he? This freshman, I pick Collazo, but the thing is, Collazo, he can be hurt, can he? And like he's hittable, but he's tenacious, and so I tend to think I fancy him. I watched that the CP Factor. They changed it. They just have the name.
You can sponsor like a lot of fighters. So we were going to sponsor.
Yeah, his name on
Thailand.
the card is not that.
No, it's his real name. Barry, do you want to have a go at his real name?
No, I don't actually.
Tamu
No.
Neom
Do
Trong.
you want to do 2 rounds in the gym?
No.
Exactly, then. Shut your mouth, innit? You know what I mean? Horses for courses, you prick.
Who wins that? Oscar Collazo. Did he box? Bloody hell, he boxed Alex Winwood, didn't he?
Yeah,
no, but that's really quick
Yeah.
turnaround for him. I thought that was earlier this year. Oscar Collazo.
Yeah, same.
I'm not sure, though.
No, I'm not either.
Because you
It's a
can't
close
be
fight.
But I'm actually really looking forward to that one because
The card
that's
itself's
not
really good.
that's
Yeah,
not
that'd be
a
that'd be
weight
action,
that
that
you like. If you go below flyweight, when you get into light flyweight, minimum weight, you just don't cover those fights very often. Do you?
No, No.
You just don't.
But
it doesn't mean there aren't really good fighters down there.
That'd be a good fight. That'd be a good fight. And be all action as well.
It will be.
The card itself,
freshman just put it on him really quickly. But
I think it's flown under the radar a little bit over here, obviously, because there's only very specific British interest. It's not even like one of for example, the August the 3rd card had a lot of American names that everyone still kind of knows over here, whereas this one doesn't really have that.
And also, it's a short bill, which is what all fights, they should all be like. What's it, 6 fights? 5 fights?
Yeah, 6 fights.
That's perfect. It
is.
One too many. But
absolutely.
That's I mean, to keep your interest, because you'll you'll stay up for that. You won't have to stay up in Saudi, innit? So it's going to be a good time for.
Well, I don't know, because it's surely going to be based for a US audience. Surely,
I don't think it is.
Is it not?
I don't think it is. The information I've got
so
is
Latino night at what? 2 in the afternoon.
Is that the main event's going to be 10ish?
Wow.
Which is like 1ish.
I'm bang up for
Saudi Arabia. That's what I'm.
I mean, I'll be over there, but I just have to late. It'd be really bad.
I'm pretty sure we're going on air at 5 on Sky, because with these Saudi cards, there aren't that many fights on them often, but almost always they're really kind of well matched. So quite a lot of these nights, they've gone long, haven't they? Like Wembley, for example, kind of needed Hamza Shiraz from a logistics point of view. We needed that to be a short one, really, for it to hit that kind of sweet spot, because we've tended to get quite a lot of rounds out of these nights, basically.
Yeah, it's just the byproduct of competitive match.
It's funny with TV people, because like when you have shows like that are not really out of the TV company's control. I think the Zone were doing the feed, weren't they? And they were like, there's a proper panic. So they pay all these money to people like Lennox Lewis, and I think he was with TNT, wasn't he? They pay all this money to have these big, massive guests, and you're like, God, we spent the foot. We're not going to use them.
You've got no time to talk.
Yeah, you've got no time to talk. Just show a picture of Lennox Lewis, like,
Get in there and do the ring.
50 grand. That was 50 grand photo. That was.
Right. Okay. Last quick couple. Barry, going to come to you first for Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano 2. Seems like you're a little bit on the fence with this one.
I am a little bit. I'm going to go Katie Taylor. Still, I think the size might be the difference here, and I think she's still got one last fight. Me saying that for a long time. Her and Kiko Martinez. I've always bet against Martinez. I go the other way with Katie Taylor because I learned my lesson with Martinez. Oh, you gotta be shot. You gotta be past. Yeah, so I think Katie Taylor. It'd be points, obviously. I think, and I just think she sneaks over the line, and then she sails away into the sunset for about 2 months, and then gets her been training for another fight. She won't retire, that girl.
No.
She won't retire. The sport will retire her, unfortunately.
I mean, that's usually the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I picked Taylor too.
But this is the fight she can retire on. It's mega money.
Yeah, I think she'll find a way. I think it will be really hard. I think she'll dig it out somehow, because that's just who she is. It's not. I'm not saying that's not who Serrano is, but I think Serrano. I don't think she's got any kind of thoughts of retirement, Serrano, to be honest. And I don't think Taylor wants to entertain it, but I think she is. I think it's going to take a big effort, a massive effort from her to win this fight, and I think it will take a significant chunk off her, but I think she will get it done.
It's crazy because I still think there's more left in the locker for Serrano than there's Taylor. I think a lot more.
I think so.
But I still think the size is more of a difference than it was in the first fight.
I think smart money would be Katie Taylor points. I just got a feeling that Serrano might do it. I got a feeling that because this is
so have I actually.
And this
but
is
I
on
don't
a way
want to. I don't
want to. I
kind of because I'm not involved in it. I just kind of a little bit of nostalgia is creeping in for me, and I want Taylor to win. So I'm projecting a bit. I'm aware of that.
I think it's going to be close and controversial, and I think Serrano's going to get it.
Will we then have a third?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'd like to see Serrano go down, go featherweight.
No big fights there, is there? Like,
but they can build that.
She's at the stage of her career now. She'd have been boxing for, with respect, not much money for world titles for such a period. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why certainly I don't think Amanda Serrano would retire. Why would you retire? You spent all your time kind of boxing for considerably less than's available to you now. Even if she loses, she's got an additional excuse of it being at 140 this time, not even at 135.
Yeah,
but I just feel like it might be close enough, and there might be enough Serrano support in the stadium at that point where those close exchanges and those close rounds that are cheered for one fighter and not for the other could go in her favour. Okay, and the one that everyone is waiting for with bated breath, Barry, Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul.
Who cares? It's not real boxing, is it? Who gives a shit? Oh, sorry. We're
going to use that.
You should use it. I mean, I could look at them, but I think you got to go with common sense, haven't you? I think Jake Paul stops him. I mean, you got to say, haven't you? You got a fighter who hasn't had a competitive fight for 20 plus years, and then he wasn't nowhere near the fighter he was. And then the fight before that, he was nowhere near the fight he was, but still twice the fight that he was in his last fight. And so, the degeneration of him has been quite easy to see. I don't see how people just think he's going to roll back the years and bypass the years, but he was nowhere near his best. I mean, they can't just bypass all that. They've seen a decline 20 years ago. So you got to add on to that. And you got a young guy who might not know the box that good, but he's still a big guy who can throw a punch against an old guy who might not see him coming. So unless Tyson get him really early and catch him clean quick, then you got to think that Jake Paul catches him and he unravels. It's just crazy saying, isn't it?
I hate to do it to you, Andy, but your prediction?
I agree with all of that, but I'm going to say Tyson by knockout.
Okay.
Just because that's what I want to happen.
Yeah.
I'm
You do that.
Yeah, that's the.
I'm Andy Clark. I do what I want.
I'm Andy Clark. I'll do what I want, and I predict that Mike Tyson will knock out Jake Paul because that's what I want to happen. I don't think it's going to be some kind of crippling blow for the sport if Jake Paul knocks out Mike Tyson.
No, it's
but
not.
I just don't want it to happen.
I definitely get a T-shirt with your picture on. I'm going to say, "I'm Andy Clark and I do what I want." And then on the back is, as long as they see my contract.
Yeah.
It's just not founded in any kind of reality, that statement either.
Yeah, you can't really
do what I want.
I
can't think of hardly any circumstances in which I do what I want.
Mrs. on the back going, does he fuck?
Yeah, she's watching around. No, he doesn't. Yeah.
He won't even tell the neighbours to be quiet.
When they're setting off fireworks.
You watched last week's show?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well, come on, now.
We'll go for Jake Paul by decision.
I know. Look,
we've gone for one by knockout, one by. I just don't think, because I'm with you. I think that there could definitely have been some jiggery pokery.
I think so. And having, I said it at the start, and then you kind of talked me around to thinking, maybe there hasn't been that kind of agreement, but I think that really there might have been. And that we will get a kind of 8 rounds where we're waiting for something to happen and nothing happens.
But he had a real fight with Roy Jones, didn't he? Oh no, he never did.
Okay, well, we got there in the end. Thank you very much to our esteemed panel of Barry, for our esteemed panel of guests. He's just calculating his overtime for joining us, and to you, of course, for listening to us ramble along for the last hour and a half about one fight in particular. That's not even a real fight. But yes, let us know in the comments who you think will win. Will it be Chris Billam-Smith? Will it be Zurdo Ramirez? Will it be Mike Tyson or Jake Paul? Let us know in the comments, and we'll catch up with you next week.